Welcome to the We Know Ball podcast, episode 104. My name is Ryan. Thank you so much for tuning in. As usual, we have a fantastic episode today, episode 104, to discuss all things, all sports, because we know ball. Obviously going to talk about basketball. We are in the thick of it in both college and the NBA, the biggest and most important storylines in the world of basketball. Of course, we're going to dive into the college football scoreboard. Week 13 of the college football scoreboard is done and gone seemingly every single week. Teams that have a legitimate chance to contend, legitimate chance to compete for a national championship and get into the top 12 in the college football playoff. Of all those teams, half of them seem to lose every single week. It makes no sense. College football is completely broken this year. We will discuss the implications of all the scores and how the new college football playoff rankings that are going to come out, how they'll look, what that's going to indicate based on how the scores unfolded in week 13 and what that looks like for the future. And then, of course, the NFL week 12 had some really surprising results in the NFL if you hadn't caught up on all the storylines, all the scores. And at the end of the episode, if you don't know it by now, you're going to know it by the end of the episode. But we have a new frontrunner for Offensive Rookie of the Year, best rookie quarterback taken in last year's draft. If you live under a rock, you may not know it. If you live in real life, you probably do know it. But we're going to break down exactly how we got to this point and discuss everything in the world of sports in episode 104 on a new setup. Might sound a little bit different. Hopefully it sounds better. Either way, it doesn't matter because we're going to jump straight into it. The We Know Ball podcast, episode 104. Let's go.
We know ball. First and goal. Mahomes flings it. It's there! Hardman! Jackpot! Kansas City! It's over. Time to say it again, Boston. Anything's possible. Banner number 18 has been secured. The Celtics are NBA champions.
I mean, we know that we know ball around here.
Hail, hail, Michigan. They are the champions of college football 2023.
Start the party, Los Angeles! Your Dodgers have won the World Series!
It is a UConn coronation. The Huskies make history. Back-to-back national champions.
Well, we know ball also.
You heard LeBron. We know ball. We know ball. Man, we know ball. And you do too, because you turn it into the show, right? Episode 104, the We Know Ball podcast. Thank you guys so much for picking this show, myself, as a part of your day, for making the choice to become more educated, become a ball knower, however you want to define it, however you want to describe it. We're here and we're ready to talk ball on episode 104. Again, my name is Ryan. My Twitter handle, @RyanKnowsBall. @RyanKnowsBall. That's my Twitter handle. Our social media handles across the channels are @WeKnowBallSports, and that's Instagram and TikTok, @WeKnowBallSports. The podcasts are on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Check us out on YouTube. We put clips from the show. We put all kinds of different short segments, different pieces of content. So any and every place you want to find us. I mentioned my Twitter handle, @RyanKnowsBall. You head to my Twitter account, my X account, whatever you want to call it. There's a link in my bio that's got all our channels, so you can go there. You can check it out. You get the referrals that you're looking for. Anything and everything you need, ball knowledge related, is there. And on this show, because we've got a great episode for you guys today. We're going to go through all the sports. We're going to, I don't want to say brush through basketball, but basketball, it is in season, but it's not necessarily, it's not the leading storyline and contender right now. It's in the early stages of the basketball season, whereas in football, of course, it's getting down to crunch time. So we'll talk basketball, we'll talk hoops. We'll start with college, which we haven't really done yet so far this season. but we've got college basketball underway. We've got the standings. I'm going to pull up the top 25 here. AP coaches rankings. The thing with college hoops is, the BPIs and the AP top 25 and all these different things. It's hard because the BPI, or the basketball power index that they use in college basketball to sort of assign a value to how good these teams actually are, a lot of times it doesn't make a ton of sense, right? Because you look at a team like Houston, right? The Houston Cougars NCAA basketball team. And according to ESPN's BPI, their BPI rank is number 1. 23.5 is their number. It's basically, BPI measures a team's true strength going forward, its expected point margin per 70 possessions versus an average opponent on a neutral court. So I don't really know. The point is, the number, the BPI number, it's higher the number, the better the team is. And you've got Houston at number 1 in the BPI rankings, 23.5. Duke is number 2 at 22.8. And then Tennessee's at number 3, 20.9. And Auburn is at number 4. And these are the BPI rankings. Again, I've said that 5 times, but just making sure. Auburn is number 4. If you're looking at just wins and losses, Houston is 3-1. Duke is 4-1. Tennessee, 6-0. Auburn, 4-0. And Auburn has played Houston and beat Houston. And somehow the BPI has Houston ranked higher than Auburn. That simply just cannot be the case. That does not make any sense. Unless Houston lost by 1 point to Auburn, and then their 3 other wins are all against top 5 teams, that would make sense. But that's certainly not the case. Houston is 3-1. Auburn is 4-0. Auburn beat Houston. And yet the BPI has Houston above Auburn. So it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. It's very odd. The BPI rankings. Again, Duke number 2 in the BPI rankings, and they have a loss already, and they've lost to Kentucky, who's all the way down at number 9 and undefeated in the BPI. So I don't get it. Doesn't make a lot of sense. I understand in the grand scheme of these things, all these teams are going to be in the playoff, or, in the tournament rather, in one form or another, barring an absolutely monumental collapse by these top, 20 teams in the BPI. But if you're talking to somebody about the college basketball, rankings or standings or seeding, especially come time for the tournament or into the new year in January, February, tell them BPI, it's not the end all be all, right? And neither is the AP, neither is the AP top 25, neither is the coaches poll. However, you got to take all of it, I think, into consideration. And I think head to head has to have some form of weight. It has to. It has to. Otherwise, right, what are we doing? And it does in the AP top 25, because in the AP, you got Auburn in the AP top 25, Auburn at 4, Houston at 7. Okay, that's fine, right? Houston's still top 10, top 7, but they lost to Auburn. They can't be higher than Auburn. Similarly, Duke is at number 12. They're 3-1 on their record. Kentucky is at 3-0, and they're number 9. So Kentucky's ranked ahead of Duke because they beat them. Auburn's ranked ahead of Houston because they beat them. Doesn't mean those teams that lost have to drop 500 spots and be out of contention or out of the top 25. No, just drop them down. They lost a game. It's not the end of the world. We'll see where we're at the end of the season. Similarly, Alabama played Purdue last week, I believe. Purdue beat Alabama, so in the AP top 25, Purdue is ranked ahead of Alabama. Alabama dropped 6 spots in the most recent AP Top 25. Purdue slides up 7 spots. It's how it should be, right? Purdue beat Alabama, so put them up there. It's really simple. Makes a lot of sense. In the top 25 right now, running through these, some teams to, ESPN. Kansas is 1, UConn is 2, Gonzaga 3, Auburn 4, Iowa State 5, Purdue 6, Houston 7, Alabama 8, Kentucky 9, North Carolina 10, Tennessee 11, Duke 12, Baylor 13, Creighton at 14, Marquette at 15, Indiana at 16, Arizona at 17, Cincinnati 18, Wisconsin at number 19, Arkansas at number 20, Florida 21, St. John's at number 22, Texas A&M at number 23, Rutgers at number 24, and Illinois at 25. A lot of the usual suspects, right? Especially come tournament time, especially come, you think college basketball. Who are some big time programs? And I'll buzz you if they're in the top 25. Okay, Gonzaga, Kansas, UConn, Kentucky, Duke, UNC, Marquette, right? Like they're all right. They're all in the top 25. So it's a lot of the usual suspects, and that's fine. I mean, it's no problem. I'm just saying, that's why college basketball doesn't have quite the urgency at this point in the season as it would maybe later on, or as these teams start to play each other or get into conference play or those types of things. But that's college hoops at the moment. Moving on to the NBA. In the world of college basketball, not a ton of outlandish storylines or standings or anything like that. The Cavaliers did play the Celtics and lose to the Celtics, so they lost their first game of the season. That being said, Cleveland's still 17-1 in the Eastern Conference. They're the number 1 seed. Boston Celtics are 14-3. The Orlando Magic are 11-7. The Knicks are 9-7, and after that, there is not a team above 500 in the entire Eastern Conference. We're going to continue to hammer that nail on the head and point out the fact that the Eastern Conference is incredibly weak. Incredibly weak. Western Conference, the Warriors are 12-4. The Thunder are 12-4. The Rockets are 12-6. Lakers are 10-6. Clippers are 11-7. Nuggets are 9-6. It's pretty tightly contested there in the Western Conference, all the way down to the 10 seed, San Antonio Spurs, the 10 seed being the hard line for any basketball to be played post regular season with the play-in tournament. And even the Spurs at the 10 seed are 9-8, above 500. So Western Conference significantly stronger than the Eastern Conference. And that's okay. I mean, it is what it is. I just wouldn't be surprised, as we've talked about time and time again, if the commissioner or somebody in the NBA looks to potentially shake things up in terms of the playoff seeding or the playoff formats. So it's not an unfair treatment or lopsided, power heavy on one side of the bracket, with the Western Conference being really competitive and the Eastern Conference having 2 legitimate title contenders going into the postseason. So nevertheless, that's the world of basketball. And I mean, just quickly in terms of the top headlines in the NBA, Kristaps Porzingis is going to make his debut against the Clippers here soon. Victor Wembanyama is having a great year. The Denver Nuggets, are without Nikola Jokic and have been for a little bit. I guess he's dealing with something just family related off the court. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Again, NBA. NBA is having a hard time, and the NBA Cup has incentivized the regular season a little bit more. But there was some quotes from Adam Silver about the NBA and the decline in viewership. It's too early to tell on that. And again, football is always going to dominate. Always going to dominate. The time for NBA to shine is typically in that February, March, April, May, even. But for now, the NBA, the numbers don't look great for them. in terms of ratings, in terms of viewership, in terms of entertainment factor. And we'll see if that's going to change. We'll see if that, has any implications on the actual future of the NBA, but I doubt it because the money is still pretty crazy. So that's the world of basketball. Moving on to college football. Moving on to football in general. Okay? Football, American football, college football, National Football League, football. College football scoreboard. All right? Coming into the week, I mentioned it on last week's episode, we really only had one game, seemingly, that would have like big playoff implications with a top 5 matchup. And otherwise, it seemed to be seemingly kind of chalk the rest of the way. And, a lot of ranked versus unranked, a lot of good records versus mediocre to bad records. So we weren't expecting a lot of parity this week, and yet we got it again. We're going to go through the scores, we're going to talk the storylines, and we're going to go through it not only chronologically, but then in terms of the rankings and the scoreboard in general. And I say chronologically because we look at the top 25, and there was a team in the top 25 playing on Friday, and that was UNLV playing against San Jose State. UNLV beat San Jose State 27-16. UNLV was number 24 coming into this week. They improved to 9-2 and 5-1 in the Mountain West. And don't sleep on UNLV. They've got 2 losses. And if they win the Mountain West, there's potential for them to be the highest ranked Group of 5 conference champion if they go out and win the Mountain West. That may put them in the playoff. So don't sleep on UNLV. They beat San Jose State on Friday. And then moving on to Saturday, we're going to go through the rankings again in terms of highest ranked to lowest rank, go through how each team did, and talk about the storylines for that. So starting off with the biggest game of the day, number 2, Ohio State hosted number 5, Indiana. Ohio State beats Indiana 38-15. And this is exactly how this game should have gone. This is exactly how I expected it to be. That's no disrespect to Indiana. But if you look through their schedule, Indiana was undefeated up to the point where they played Ohio State. And if we're just being honest, it was an inflated schedule. That being said, Cignetti and Indiana had things going in the right direction. And they have been playing very good football. But Ohio State is bigger, better, faster, stronger. And ultimately, the talent in this game kind of prevailed, I think, more than anything, in all facets at every position. If you look at the box score for Ohio State and Indiana, and you look at things like team stats, defensive stats, Indiana had more first downs. Indiana, it looks like, ran as many offensive plays as anybody else. They had more possession. I mean, it was close and split in terms of time of possession. The thing that Indiana didn't have, and frankly hasn't had for the entirety of the season, was the explosive play factor. The one play, one snap, one throw, catch, touchdown that can change the score in the blink of an eye. Indiana's a team, Cignetti's a coach, where they're designed to control the line of scrimmage, run the football, control the clock, time and possession goes in their favor. They don't turn the ball over. They play sound defense, and they come out with the win. That's the recipe for Indiana. What they don't take into consideration with that recipe and what they can't do is play from behind. And when the other team takes the lead, like Ohio State did, or when the other team, when it's tied and Ohio State's able to score in 3 plays on a drive, that's something that Indiana is not prepared to handle. And that's okay. If I'm Ohio State after beating Indiana, I'm not really celebrating almost anything. Because, frankly, Indiana, as high as they were ranked, their record and their ranking were both inflated. They're a good football team, and they should still be in the college football playoff, I believe, in some capacity, no matter how this season shakes out, especially considering how thin the rankings are going to get once you get it into the 9, 10, 11, 12 rankings. One of those teams should certainly be Indiana by the end of the year, no matter what. That being said, don't be surprised either to see Indiana go into the playoff, whoever they play up against, and have the same result that they had against Ohio State. Because from a talent perspective, from a physicality perspective, Indiana doesn't really have all those things, and that's okay. It's not the end of the world, but Ohio State was significantly better than Indiana in this game, and Ohio State has solidified themselves as, I believe, the number 2 team in the country behind Oregon. And Ohio State's only loss is to Oregon. So Ohio State is good. But, you know, you've got Will Howard and you got the Ohio State sideline, like, celebrating. I guess Indiana was maybe talking a little bit of smack, quote unquote, coming into this game. You know, okay. If I'm Ohio State, it's kind of like handshakes, handle business. Thanks for coming out. We're moving on. Instead, they seem to be like really celebratory and like rubbing it in their face after the game. Kind of weird. Yeah, kind of weird. I don't know. Ohio State, it's like, I feel like, you know, they were a full step above Indiana, just in all facets. So to be like super celebratory, to be winning at home as a double-digit favorite, kind of a weird thing. But hey, that's just me. That's just me. But Ohio State at number 2, they beat number 5 Indiana 38-15. You know, Ohio State's defense is just suffocating. They gave up like 120 total yards of offense, and that's after Indiana got the ball and had their first drive that was, you know, usually pretty scripted in terms of what they're planning to do, that they probably practiced all week. And Indiana went down the field to, you know, put 60 or 70 plus yards on the Ohio State offense, and then on the Ohio State defense, rather. After that, there was really nothing. There was nothing for Indiana. They scored on their first drive in the first quarter, then they scored a late touchdown in the fourth. And so 15 doesn't look that bad. Ultimately, this was a 38-7 with a garbage time touchdown. So, and I know it counts, you know, signed up for 60 minutes, fourth quarter, doesn't matter, but 38-15 doesn't look that bad, but it's 23-point win, and it should have been closer to 30. So, anyways, Ohio State wins at number 2. They beat number 5 Indiana. It's not going to be enough for them to overtake Oregon, especially since number 1 Oregon this week didn't play. But Ohio State has pretty much solidified themselves at number 2 for the remainder of the season. They play Michigan next week, I believe, or maybe they have a bye and then they play Michigan. I think it's Michigan next week. Either way, Ohio State's number 2. They're going to be number 2. And moving on below them, number 3. So number 3, Texas, at home against Kentucky. They beat Kentucky 31-14. You know, 31-14 is fine. It's not a resounding, dominant, killer win. Texas is going to stay at number 3. And, you know, I think that's where they're going to be for the remainder of the season as well. And then go into the SEC championship, and we'll see what happens with them. Texas, for me, seemed like the world beaters. Texas seemed like the team that was going to go out and really run away with this thing, or be, you know, legitimate title contenders, kind of in that same category as Oregon. They've been just very underwhelming ever since they lost to Georgia. Very underwhelming as a team. And I don't know if that's going to translate. I don't know what that means for their future. But, you know, Quinn Ewers, the whole like benching and that whole situation, just weird. Kind of just getting like very, again, underwhelming vibes from Texas since the Georgia loss. And that's okay, because they've won every game since, and maybe it'll take a game with a little bit of extra juice for them to get fired up again. But I'm not really scared of Texas, if that makes any sense. But I don't know. That's just me. Number 4, Penn State. Penn State went on the road to Minnesota. Penn State was number 4, 10-1. Minnesota was 6-4 and unranked. And Penn State beats them by 1 point. 1-point win, 26-25. Penn State wins. I think Penn State is big, physical, strong, and certainly has a lot to offer in those departments. I think their offense isn't good. I think Drew Aller is average at best. And I think they have no actual legitimate chance to win the national championship. No, like, I don't think they have a single chance. I really don't. I watched them play Ohio State. I've seen them time and time again. I mean, look at their schedule. All right. They beat Bowling Green 34-27. They beat USC 33-30 when they should have lost that game. Like, they should have lost that game to USC. They lose to Ohio State. Boring, brutal. And then they barely beat Minnesota 26-25. They also lost one of their offensive linemen, one of their better offensive linemen. They play Maryland next week. They're going to beat Maryland. But again, looking at the conference standings, they're not going to have to play probably in the conference championship game. You got Oregon and Ohio State, who will most likely be rematching in the Big Ten championship, and that's fine. Penn State's going to get in the playoff, man. And I'm going to bet against them, both literally and metaphorically, because they just don't scare me. They have nothing on offense, no weaponry that's intimidating of any capacity. I'm just not scared of Penn State. I'm not scared of them. I'm not scared of Drew Aller. I'm not scared of James Franklin. I'm not scared of anything that they have to offer. So they're going to get in, and it is what it is. But again, don't be shocked if, Penn State gets, here's the final rankings. Penn State's number 5 or whatever, because, they're not a conference champion. They get a home playoff game, and then they lose to Georgia, or they lose to Tennessee. It's like, yeah, of course, because they're not actually good. They just play Big Ten football and run the ball. Number 5. Who's number 5 this week? Number 5. Come on. Oh, Indiana. Holy cow, am I broken. Number 5 was Indiana. They lost. Number 6, Notre Dame. Number 6, Notre Dame played against Army at Yankee Stadium in New York City. Number 19, Army, by the way. And Notre Dame absolutely I don't want to curse too much. They stomped Army. They killed them. 49-14. 14 in the first quarter. 14 in the second quarter. 14 in the third quarter. 7 in the fourth. Game was never close. They ran the ball all over them. They did everything they wanted to do. Offense was moving the ball at will. And yeah, they did not play well. Army did not play well. Notre Dame played great. So I wouldn't be surprised as we talk about Indiana losing, talk about Penn State barely winning. I'm gonna look to see where Notre Dame slides. I wouldn't be shocked if they slide up to number 4. I wouldn't be shocked in the college playoff rankings. Up a spot for sure. I wouldn't be shocked if it goes Penn State, Notre Dame 4, Penn State 5, Indiana 6, or something like that. We'll see. So that's number 6, Notre Dame. Number 7, Alabama. Number 7, Alabama. They play Oklahoma. They lose to Oklahoma. So I'm an Alabama fan, okay? I'm a bandwagon. I latched on during the prime Saban portion and era of the Alabama program. And I, along with most of the country, how do I put this? did I having a hard time, like, quantifying this, I guess? I'll pose it in terms of a question. Did Alabama fool the entire country after the first half of their game against Georgia? The answer is yes. They fooled the entire country. They fooled the College Football Playoff Committee. They fooled the AP Top 25. They fooled me. They fooled everybody involved, because that first half of their game against Georgia early in the season showed everybody that Alabama might be the greatest football team to ever exist. Dropping 28, not giving up anything on defense, moving the ball at will. And as it turns out, the actual result of that is that Alabama just had a really good offensive game plan. Kalen DeBoer is a smart offensive coach when he has lots of film to work from and how to attack a defense. What Kalen DeBoer as a head coach can account for, especially on the defensive side, is an offense that decides that they're going to run the ball with both the running back and the quarterback. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, Jackson Arnold carried the ball 25 times for 131 yards against Alabama. Who are the games and what are the opponents that Alabama seemed to have a hard time against? Well, the Vanderbilt offense, that was essentially a triple option, read option type offense where you had to pretty much decide between stopping the running back or the quarterback or any other running options in the backfield, a lot of pre-snap motion. Jackson Arnold had only carried the ball over 20 times one other time this season, and it was against Ole Miss in a loss for Oklahoma. Seemingly, a lot of those carries may have been on the fly, scramble mode, not designed runs. Against Alabama, it was almost primarily designed runs. Kalen DeBoer is a great offensive coach. His play designs, his offensive mind is amongst the best in the country. When it comes time to stop an opponent on defense, or God forbid, have a solid defensive game plan and have your guys in the right position to stop an offense on the other side of the ball that runs the ball with their running backs, their quarterbacks, other weapons in the backfield, a multi-run option attack on the other side of the ball. Kalen DeBoer has no idea what to do. Couldn't do it against Vanderbilt, couldn't stop them in any kind. Tennessee, he struggled against them, obviously, defensively. And now you got Jackson Arnold, no disrespect, but Jackson Arnold throws the ball 11 times. He has 9 completions for 68 yards. As the quarterback, as a guy who's had multiple 200-yard passing games, multiple multi-touchdown passing games this season at quarterback for Oklahoma. And Oklahoma comes in and says, forget all of that. He's going to throw the ball 11 times, and he's going to run the ball 25 times. 25 times. 131 rushing yards for Jackson Arnold. Alabama's defense gave up 260 rushing yards. The book is out on Alabama and Kalen DeBoer. The book is out. If you want to beat them, run the ball with your quarterback, run the ball with your running back, have multiple options to carry the football in the backfield on your offensive side, and just apply a little bit of pressure to Jalen Milroe in the pocket. He's going to continue to make bad decisions. I was wrong about the Alabama team coming into this year. Actually, I wasn't wrong. I was wrong about them after their win against Georgia. Should Alabama be in the playoff with 3 losses? Absolutely, unequivocally, without a question, the answer is no. And it's a resounding no. And if these new rankings come out or the end of the season rankings come out and Alabama is in consideration or, God forbid, finds their way into the college football playoff, I think the committee should be embarrassed. And this, by the way, is all coming from me. I am an Alabama fan. I am a bandwagon fan. I have no legitimate ties, but it's a team that I gravitated towards as a youngling getting into college football. I love Alabama. I loved what they did, how their program is represented, especially during the Saban era. I was, a little reluctant to fully embrace Kalen DeBoer and how the team is going to look and how his roster was built and his offensive attack and approach. I welcomed it in a little bit more after they dominated Georgia, especially the first half. Then they almost blew that game, by the way. People forget that. But for Alabama to win that game against Georgia and then immediately turn around and not be ready to go against a Vanderbilt team, have no defensive answer, anytime an opponent has a multiple run option offense in the backfield, quarterbacks, running backs, guys in motion, anytime the other team has that, Alabama has no answer. No answer. No answer. Cannot do anything. In the words of famous Nick Saban, if the other team has multiple options to carry the football in the backfield between quarterbacks, running backs, and halfbacks, or whoever you want to call them, if the opponent against Alabama has multiple options in the backfield to carry the football, in the famous words of Nick Saban, they're going to run through Alabama's defense like shit through a tin horn. They're going to run them over. Vanderbilt destroyed Alabama on the ground. Oklahoma destroyed Alabama on the ground. And on the defensive side of the ball, just apply a little bit of pressure to Jalen Milroe. Just a little bit of pressure. Just a little bit of pressure on the outside. Different looks in terms of pass rush. Maybe run a couple stunts. Maybe bring more than 4. Maybe bring some linebackers. Bring some DBs. Milroe's going to get flushed. Milroe's not going to make the right decision, and he's not going to play well. Alabama has no business being anywhere near the top 12 and being in consideration for the playoff. And that's coming from an Alabama fan. They have no business. And I hate saying it. It breaks my heart to consider that, especially considering where they were after they beat Georgia. I mean, they were number 1. They were number 1 in the country. And then they lost 2 games and still found their way all the way up to number 7 because the rest of the pack wasn't playing very well. 8-2, they go to Oklahoma. They score 3 points. They give up 260 yards on the ground. They're having procedural penalties on offense. They're not lining up properly. They're getting, delay game penalty. Like nothing that would indicate a team that even resembles a college football playoff program. Nothing. And this is coming from an Alabama fan. They should not be anywhere near the top 12. They don't deserve it. They don't deserve it. They have no business being anywhere near the top 12. No business, man. And breaks my heart to say, but it's just a fact. It's just an absolute fact. So Alabama, number 7, they lose. That's my diatribe in the world of college football. They lose to Oklahoma. They're now 8-3. You have 3 losses. Get out. Get out. Miami at number 8, they beat Wake Forest 42-14. And then number 9, Ole Miss, also 2-loss team, goes on the road to another SEC opponent, and they look terrible. Ole Miss loses to Florida 24-17. Ole Miss's defense optional as usual, especially under a guy like Lane Kiffin. Now we come to decision time. It's almost the end of the regular season. Should 3-loss teams be in consideration for the college football playoff? The answer is no. The answer is no. I don't care who they played against. I don't care if they had a tough schedule. I am an SEC guy. I am an Alabama fan, And I'm telling you, in resounding fashion, Alabama at 8-3 and Ole Miss at 8-3 have no business being anywhere near the top 12. Anywhere near. Put them in the top 25. Okay, sure. Alabama should be 21. Ole Miss should be 24. They have 3 losses. Alabama has 2 losses against unranked teams. Ole Miss, same thing. They should be nowhere near. And then not to mention it, sorry, Georgia, but your 2 losses are to those 2 teams. So why is Georgia anywhere near the top 12? How many multiple turnover games and poor performances has Carson Beck had at Georgia? Oh, but they beat Texas. I honestly, I don't care. I don't care. Is Georgia going to be in the top 12 at the end of the year? Probably, right? Should they be? Honestly, I don't think so. I don't think they should. They played like crap against Kentucky. They lost to, as we now know, a bad Alabama team, a bad Ole Miss team. Okay, they beat Texas on the road at Texas. I don't think Texas is honestly that good either. Should Georgia be in the top 12? Honestly, I don't think so. And I'm an SEC guy, and I want to see as much SEC representation as possible as a bandwagon Alabama fan. I do. But what can continue to happen, especially in these college football rankings, is this seemingly circle blank, a bias about the SEC to some degree, where every team in the SEC starts to get ranked higher and higher and higher, no matter what. And then you can look at Georgia's 2 losses and go, well, they lost to who was number 7 Alabama. They lost to who was number 9 Ole Miss. No, they're just ranked that high because the committee put them up there. As it turns out, Alabama's not good. Ole Miss is not good. And Georgia's 2 losses are to those 2 teams. So, as it turns out, Georgia may not actually be that good either. So don't put them in. They're going to be in, but they shouldn't be. And I don't think that's fair to the rest of these teams that are probably better. Probably contenders. And at some point, the regular season is going to have to mean something. At some point. But that's just me, man. I'm done, man. I'm done diatribing, and honestly, we'll run through the rest of these highlights so we can get to the NFL. But Ole Miss at number 9 loses to unranked Florida. They should be out of the top 12. Georgia beats Massachusetts 59-21. The game was like kind of tight for the first 2 quarters. Like I was saying, Georgia's not great. They're going to be in the playoff of, I'm sure. Anyways, but that's stupid, and it shouldn't just be an automatic bid. Georgia was number 10. They beat Massachusetts 59-21. Number 11, Tennessee. They have 2 losses. They beat UTEP 56-0. Like, okay. Number 12, Boise State. They played Wyoming, and they beat them 17-13. Barely coming away with the victory there. Ashton Genty, 19 carries, 169 yards and a touchdown. He'll be a Heisman finalist. Number 13, SMU. They played Virginia, beat them 33-7. They are a good team. I think they should be really high in the college football playoff rankings. They should be all the way up, I'm telling you guys, up to number 8, number 7. Like, they are a top 10 team in the country. Number 14, BYU played against number 21, Arizona State. In a Big 12 game, Arizona State beats them 28-23. BYU's not good. They, again, very similar to the kind of Indiana situation where look at their schedule and then look how they beat these teams. BYU's not good. They're 9-2. They may be, no, they won't be. Arizona State should flip-flop with them, but I guess we'll see. And then hilariously, Texas A&M. They play Texas next week. And, everyone knew that that's where College Game Day was going. Texas is going to Texas A&M. It's a rivalry game. It's the last game of the season, blah, 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 blah. Everyone's looking ahead. And Texas A&M just looked past Auburn. They just looked past them. And they give up 43 points, and they lose 43-41 in 4 overtimes. Number 15, Texas A&M, now has 3 losses on their record. They have 3 losses, including an unranked Auburn team, an unranked South Carolina team that they got blown apart by, And then they lost to Notre Dame in the first week of the season. So Texas A&M isn't good. And they're going to play Texas next week, and they're probably going to lose. If they beat Texas by some miracle or grace of God, should that put them back into playoff consideration? I don't know, but I don't think so. Number 16, Colorado. They go on the road to Kansas. They weren't prepared to play. They weren't prepared for the physicality. They gave up 207 rushing yards to Kansas's running back. They could not stop anything on the ground. Offensively, they scuffled, and ultimately it led to Kansas beating Colorado 37-21. So, Kansas at number 16 also now has 3 losses. What does that mean? That means they should drop out of contention. They can still get into the Big 12 championship. And, again, you're probably going to have a team winning in especially considering the nature of just how college football is this year. You're going to have a 3-loss team, I think, finding a way into the playoff. The only way I'll put it again as a frame of a question. Should a 3-loss team in any capacity in college football be in contention for the top 12 and for the college football playoff? And the answer is no. The answer is a resounding no. There's no reason why we have all these teams that have 2 losses, these teams that have played well, these teams that are ranked near the top 12 with 2 losses, why they shouldn't be in front of the teams that have lost 3 games this year. The only teams that should be in the playoff with 3 losses are the teams that somehow or another found their way into a conference championship game with the 3 losses some way or another, and then they won the conference championship. Because if you win your conference championship, you should be rewarded with a playoff berth. But any automatic bids, any teams on the outside that didn't play in conference championships or didn't win one and have 3 losses, there should be a blanketed no chance at all that those teams get into the college football playoff. There shouldn't be any chance. 3 losses means you aren't a national title contender. I don't care about the rest of the pack. I don't care about, oh, this team was really good too, but they lost 3 games. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. 3 losses means you don't make the playoff. Just like with the 4 team, 2 losses means you don't make the playoff. The only exception potentially also could be a 2-loss team that played their absolute butts off the entire year and plays against a super high-ranked team in a conference championship game and they lose, which would give them a 3rd loss. That's the only interesting niche in this where I would say, okay, you know what? How did they lose to that super high-ranked team in the conference championship game? They shouldn't be punished because they played in the conference championship against the best team in the country, hypothetically, and they lost. Oh, they have 3 losses, they're out. No, okay, we'll give that a consideration. But the teams that didn't play in a conference championship and already had 3 losses, don't put them in. Like, what are we doing, right? Don't put them in. Makes no sense. And it's not fair to the other teams that have 2 losses that have been playing their butts off all season. It's not fair at all. So you can say that about Colorado if they don't get in the Big 12 championship. That's kind of where I was going. Number 17, Clemson. They're 9-2. Clemson is 9-2. They played the Citadel, which is a joke, but they are 9-2. They beat them. And Clemson's got to be in consideration for the playoff. Because they may not be in the conference championship game with SMU and Miami, playing well in the ACC. Okay, cool. So put Clemson in. Like, I'm all in for that. Number 18, South Carolina played Wofford and beat them 56-12. And then number 22, Iowa State played Utah and beat them 31-28 on the road. Number 23, Missouri played Mississippi State, beat them 39-20. And then number 25, Illinois played Rutgers and beat them 38-31. So, as it is, the AP rankings, come out. And they don't mean anything, of course, because the college football playoff rankings are the ones they go off of. That being said, the AP rankings. Not that there's much to make of this, but they have Oregon 1, Ohio State. Oh boy, oh boy. Boy, oh boy. ESPN is hurting us right now. They've got Oregon at 1, Ohio State 2, Texas 3, Penn State 4, Notre Dame 5, Georgia 6, Tennessee 7, Miami 8, Miami at 8, Miami at 8, and Georgia at 6. Explain it to me, man. SMU at 9 and Georgia at 6. Explain it to me, man. Indiana 10. That's fine. Boise State 11, Clemson 12. I don't mind it, right? I don't mind it. But why, I guess if you're going to decide between a 2-loss Georgia team and a 2-loss Arizona State, I guess Georgia, all right? I guess Georgia and Tennessee. But it needs to be Clemson at, Miami at 6, SMU 7, Indiana 8, Boise State 9, and then I give me Georgia 10, Tennessee 11, Clemson 12. Alabama should not be there, man. It's like I almost don't want them to be in the playoff. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But yeah, that's college football, man. We'll look ahead at the schedule in an episode later this week. Move on to the NFL. So NFL, starting with Thursday Night Football, Browns beat the Steelers 24-19. Are the Steelers bad? No, it was a bit of a fluky, weird game where it was like starting to snow at the beginning. It was in Cleveland. It was Thursday night, short week for the Steelers. Then all of a sudden, halfway through the game, it starts like actually snowing hard and accumulating, and it makes the game weird, and it kind of nullifies true outcome results, in my opinion. That being said, Browns won and scored more points. 24-19, Browns win. Steelers lose and drop to 8-3. They're still a good team. How good is, I think, the question. I think they're good when the conditions are indicative of being able to throw the ball a little bit more. However, Russell Wilson threw for 270, and he threw the ball almost 30 times. So honestly, there's not a ton of excuses for the Steelers to work with there. But Browns beat the Steelers 24-19. The Lions played the Bears. The Bears lose again. 30-27. Caleb Williams throws the ball almost 50 times for 340 yards and 2 touchdowns, and the Bears lose. Caleb Williams, 32 of 47, 340 yards, 2 touchdowns, Bears lose. I think overall, it just continues to prove our point. And I feel bad for Caleb. I do, because I think he's talented. It's kind of similar to, you've got two situations in NFL Week 12 that validate our point of view. And again, I'll pose it as a question. Can quarterback play alone in a vacuum win you football games in the National Football League? The answer is no. Especially when it comes to rookie quarterbacks and when it comes to the surrounding pieces, roster construction, coaching decisions, special teams, all the other factors in a football game that can decide an outcome. Because as it turns out, the rookie quarterback that went and won overall, Caleb Williams, throws for 340 yards and 2 touchdowns. His team loses. Jaden Daniels throws for 275 yards, 2 touchdowns. His team loses. So guess what? Quarterbacks don't win football games. Quarterbacks help you win football games. Quarterbacks are probably the biggest and highest percentage in the pie of the complete package of how to win football games. But the quarterback is one player on one side of the ball. He's the ball dominant player. He's probably the most important player. But if you don't play defense, but if you don't execute on special teams, but if you don't have good operations, your quarterback could throw for 1,000 yards in a game and you can still lose. Caleb, 340, 2 touchdowns. Bears lose. Jaden Daniels, 275, 2 touchdowns. Commanders lose. Why? Oh, because the Commanders gave up 34 points to the Cowboys and Cooper Rush. Why did the Bears lose? Because they gave up 30 points to the Minnesota Vikings and Sam Darnold, who's been struggling as of late. 106 rushing yards against the Bears defense for Aaron Jones, who hasn't been great this year. Goes to show you that quarterbacks and just drafting a dude, throwing him out there, letting him air it out, and even helping him out with some offensive weapons around him still doesn't guarantee success. Still. Lions played the Colts, beat them 24-6. Lions, are more of the complete package. I think the Lions are really, really, really good. I think the Lions should be in the conference championship. They should be the front runner to get, to be the NFC representative in the Super Bowl. The problem is I just don't know how they match up against some of these other, some of these other really dominant teams rather. Chiefs, Bills, even the Eagles on the NFC side. So we'll see what happens. Dolphins played the Patriots in Miami. The Dolphins win 34-15. The Dolphins are 5-6. The Dolphins are not only 5-6, but looking at their schedule the rest of the way, they play the Packers on the road next week. Let's just say, hypothetically, they lose to the Packers. I don't know. I feel like that's a coin flip game. It's going to be a really entertaining game, regardless. It's cold weather, though. It's the Dolphins. It's Tua. Let's anticipate they lose. Puts them at 5-7. And they play the Jets, who they should beat, 6-7. They play the Texans, coin flip. The point is, their schedule is Packers, Jets, at Packers, home against the Jets, at Houston, home against the 49ers, at the Cleveland Browns, and at the Jets. Let's say they win both against the Jets and they win against the Browns. That's 8 wins right there because they're at 5 already. If they win one more game between 49ers, at the Texans, and at the Packers, they got 9 wins, and that might put you in the playoffs. So keep an eye on the Dolphins, okay? But they played the Patriots. They beat them 34-15. Tua had 4 touchdowns. They had a big game. So don't sleep on the Dolphins. They're getting a little momentum. Bucks played the Giants. Giants with Tommy DeVito, and the Bucks beat them 30-7. The Giants are tanking for Shador, and they should. They released Daniel Jones. I don't even know what to say about the Giants. I mean, they're just such an embarrassing organization. Yeah. Honestly, I don't even want to spend time talking about them. Cowboys, Commanders. Cowboys beat the Commanders 34-26. Are the Washington Commanders on not only fraud watch, but I'll go as far as to say, are the Commanders frauds? The answer is yes. The Commanders are resounding frauds. If you look at the teams that they played and they beat leading up to what was their 7-2 start, they beat the Giants, they beat the Bengals, Cardinals, who are okay, but they beat the Cardinals, the Browns, the Panthers, the Bears, and the Giants. That's their first 7 wins. And that's, by the way, their only 7 wins. They lost 2 games to the Bucs and the Ravens mixed in, who turned out to be 2 very good teams. And since they won their 7 games and were at 7-2, they played Steelers, Eagles, Cowboys. Now, their loss to the Cowboys is inexcusable. Their loss to the Cowboys is unacceptable. They are better than the Cowboys, and that's the nature of football. However, they played 2 teams before that in the Eagles and Steelers, 2 teams that are tough, formidable opponents, and they lost to both. Now they lost to the Cowboys. Next week, if the Commanders play the Titans at home and it's not a blowout win, I don't care if the Commanders even win by 1 point. If it's not a blowout win against a bad Tennessee Titans team, the Commanders are full fraud watch. Like full, throw them into the complete fraudulent team franchise. I don't think Jaden Daniels is bad, and I don't think they're a bad football team. And there's a difference between bad and frauds, because frauds mean they might be okay, but they're overhyped and not as good as people are saying that they claim to be. Doesn't mean they're bad, just doesn't mean they're as good as people say. That means frauds. And I think the Commanders fall right under the definition of fraudulent, especially considering the opponents that they played this season so far. Not to mention, they have some pretty weak opponents coming up here on their schedule. Tennessee, New Orleans, and Dallas, that they could still walk away with 10 wins coming into the postseason at 10-7, and people are going to say, oh, the Commanders are pretty decent. I think they're fraudulent. I think they are just above average, and anytime they're going to have to play a tough physical opponent, they're going to get dominated. Commanders are on fraud watch. Mark it down now. Chiefs played the Panthers and beat them 30-27. The Chiefs find a way to win a game that they didn't play well and gave up a bunch of yards to Bryce Young and the Panthers. Bryce Young is a good quarterback. Anybody with a brain and eyes that's watched him throw the football over the last few weeks would tell you that exact thing. That being said, the Chiefs beat the Panthers 30-27. Am I scared of the Kansas City Chiefs in 2024? I'm going to regret saying this, and I know they're going to make me eat my words, but I am not scared of the Chiefs in any capacity. Patrick Mahomes is a great quarterback. Steve Spagnuolo and Andy Reid, great coaches, usually have their guys in the right spot. The Chiefs beat the Panthers by 3 points. The Chiefs beat the Ravens to start the season on what ended up being an Isaiah Likely toe on a line. Otherwise, that game goes to overtime. They beat the Bengals by 1 point. They beat the Raiders by 7. They beat the Broncos on a blocked field goal. Now, I know it's all part of the game, but they probably were in line, not probably, they were in line to lose that game to the Broncos. Then they played a tough Buffalo Bills team on the road. And yes, the score was 9 points. The margin of defeat was only 9. The Bills dominated that game the entire time. And they lost. Now they play the Panthers, and they beat them by 3. I am not scared of Kansas City. I think they are good. I think they are formidable. I think they can win football games. And I think they're obviously a postseason team. They're one of the top 7 in the AFC. But if you're asking me if I'm scared to play against them, like we all have been, especially in years past, especially in the early portions of this Chiefs dynasty with Mahomes and Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, all these dudes in their prime, I'm just simply not scared of them. I'm just not. 10-1 is an inflated record. Doesn't mean they're fraudulent. It doesn't mean they're bad. It also does mean they're not as good as their record indicates. I understand they find a way to win. I get that finding a way to win and winning in the NFL doesn't matter what the margin of victory. If it's 1 point every single game, a win's a win. I get it. And I know, as I say this, I'm probably putting out the juju in the air and providing, locker room footage or whatever you want to say. Providing motivation. And I know the Chiefs are just gonna make me eat my words. They're gonna make me eat my words, man. I get it. I know they're gonna win. Let me guess. Someone will pull this clip back up in February when the Chiefs are in the Super Bowl. Let me guess, right? But I'm just not scared of them. I'm not. I haven't seen one game so far this year where an opponent's gone in and been like, uh-oh, and then the Chiefs blow them out or run away with it or dominate in any capacity. But they win, and I guess that's all that matters. But I'm not scared of the Kansas City Chiefs this year. And I know they're going to make me eat my words, but I'm not scared. Titans go to Houston and play the Texans, and the Titans beat the Texans 32-27. The Texans also are not very good. They're fine. They're 7-5. Let's see who these guys have beat, right? Go to the Texans scoreboard. They beat the Bills, which is formidable. Beat them 23-20. But they've lost to the Jets. They've lost to the Titans. They've lost to the Vikings. It's kind of like every time they've played a good team, they've lost. I don't think they're horrendous. I think they're going to get into the postseason, but I wouldn't bank on them getting past the wild card round. Similar to last year. I'm going to skip over the Broncos here for a second. Packers played the 49ers and beat them 38-10. Honestly, not much to make of that game. 49ers didn't have Purdy. I think they were without another offensive weapon or maybe somebody on defense as well. So Brandon Allen had to play quarterback for the Niners, and the Packers beat them 38-10, kind of exactly how it should be. Packers are 8-3. Packers are solid. Packers are going to get in the playoffs. Packers are going to be fine. 49ers, this is an inflated kind of just a scrap game, right? Kind of just get rid of it. But yeah. Seahawks played the Cardinals, beat them 16-6 in a very low scoring affair. For me, this is a inexperienced Cardinals team, ultimately kind of choking when push comes to shove and it's time to execute in the red zone, put more points on the board than just 6. Seahawks defense hadn't been great all year, and all of a sudden they're just bowing their necks. And they're 6-5. Right now, the Seahawks are leading the NFC West. They're leading the NFC West at 6-5. By the way, there's no team in the NFC West that has more than 6 losses or more than 6 wins. So Seahawks are 6-5. Cardinals are 6-5. 49ers are 5-6. Rams are 5-6. It's like, who wants it, man? Who wants it? Sunday Night Football. Eagles played the Rams. Eagles beat the Rams 37-20. Saquon Barkley, 26 carries, 255 yards, and 2 rushing touchdowns. I'll pose it as a question. Should Saquon Barkley be in consideration for MVP? Yes. The answer is yes. Absolutely yes. 6.5 yards a carry. He has 1,400 rushing yards through 11 games. He has 10 rushing touchdowns. He has 2 receiving touchdowns. That's 12 all-purpose. The touchdowns may not be as high as somebody else like a Derrick Henry, but you have to consider the circumstance. You have to consider the team. You have to consider the offensive approach and know that Jalen Hurts by himself, if he wasn't a running quarterback, if you will, a mobile quarterback, or just in a general sense, the tush push didn't exist, that's another probably 5 or 6 or 7 different touchdowns that were on the 1 yard line, inside the 1 yard line, that would have been handoffs to Saquon that probably would have been executed, but instead they're the tush push, they're the Jalen Hurts. That's no taking away from Jalen Hurts and blah, blah, blah. Just have to consider the circumstance. Touchdowns are a stat. Touchdowns are important. But in terms of cumulative stats, and especially in terms of efficiency stats, Saquon Barkley needs to be right in the mix with MVP. In fact, I'd go as far to say the 3 MVP finalists should probably be Josh Allen at quarterback and then Saquon and Derrick Henry. You want to talk about just contributions to your team as a whole? Those are the best 3 guys on offense right now this season. Saquon should be an MVP candidate, no question about it. Has a monster game against the Eagles. There were 6 teams on a bye this week, man. Ugh. I don't love that. It is what it is, but good for Saquon. And then Monday Night Football. Tonight we got the Ravens and the Chargers. Little Harbaugh Bowl, John versus Jim in Los Angeles. Should be very fun and exciting. I'm looking forward to that game very much. Last thing to talk about here. Broncos beat the Raiders 29-19. Is Bo Nix the offensive rookie of the year? The answer is yes. Anybody who says it's Jaden Daniels, anybody says it's Caleb Williams, anybody says it's Drake May or any of the other offensive rookies, they just don't know ball. Watch the football games. Watch Bo Nix deliver the football. Watch his leadership qualities. Watch his decision making. Watch his ball placement. Look at his efficiency numbers. And take away the first 2 games of the season where he's a rookie quarterback starting, and Bo Nix's numbers are astronomically better than any of the other candidates for Offensive Rookie of the Year. Jaden Daniels is good. Caleb Williams is good in a kind of messed up situation in Chicago, kind of a disaster over there. He's not getting a lot of help and not a lot of protection. But just goes to show you yet again that ultimately the success of young quarterbacks and the success of rookie quarterbacks is not on just the guy. It's on the coaching, it's on the system, it's on the play calling, it's on the protection, it's on the receivers. Not to mention, I've seen almost every single throw that Bo Nix has made this season, and he hasn't gotten a ton of help from his receivers. And 7-5 doesn't even necessarily tell the full story of the Broncos as a team. They started the year 0-2. So again, you take away those first 2 games that were just struggles for Bo Nix, where he's finding his identity as a player and a quarterback in the National Football League. Broncos are actually 7-3. Now they've lost to good teams, and that's not necessarily a good sign. The ultimate test for Bo Nix, the ultimate test for the Denver Broncos, is going to be the final 3 games of the season. Because this week 13, they play the Browns. Should probably handle business, but we'll see what happens. The Colts, I'm talking just from a points spread perspective. They'll be favored against the Browns. They'll probably be favored against the Colts. But then the last 3 weeks at the Los Angeles Chargers, at the Bengals, and then hosting the Chiefs, that's going to be when Bo Nix can solidify his Offensive Rookie of the Year. But as it stands now, Bo Nix is definitely the Offensive Rookie of the Year. He's accounted for the most touchdowns. His passing numbers are the best of any of the rookie quarterbacks. And I'm not really sure why it's a debate or argument at this point. It shouldn't be. Jaden Daniels is good and started off great, but he's slowed down significantly. Bo Nix has got incrementally better and better and better and better. And if you have eyeballs, you'll watch him make some of these throws, some of his ball placements, some of the deliveries that he's had, some of the decisions he's made positively. Bo Nix is by far the Offensive Rookie of the Year. And it's not close. It's just not close. The last thing to talk about, in similar fashion to the Broncos, I'll just give him a little bit of love here. But if Courtland Sutton on the Broncos, the receiver, if he didn't fumble and he had some early injuries in his career and all these different things, Courtland Sutton is a sneaky top 10 receiver in the NFL. Sneaky top 10. If you want to look at season leaders, by the way, and stats, NFL stats, receiving, let's see, player stats, ESPN is killing us right now. Offensive leaders, passing, receiving, yards. So Jamar Chase leads the league, I believe, with touchdowns at 12. It's a lot of receiving touchdowns. Am I just completely missing? Okay. So right now, Courtland Sutton is 8th in the league in receiving yards. He is 12th in the league, tied for 12th with 5 touchdowns, tied with guys like Cooper Kupp, DeAndre Hopkins, Garrett Wilson. Right, the guys above him, Kittle, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jamar Chase. You get it. Justin Jefferson, where are you, brother? Where are you? Tied with 5. He's the same amount of touchdowns receiving wise as Justin Jefferson. He's 12th in the league, or what did I say? 9th in the league in receiving yards. 8th in the league in receiving yards. He's tied with Brock Bowers. Point is Courtland Sutton's top 10. I mean, he's a top 10 receiver in the NFL, and it needs to be talked about a little bit more. But either way, guys, that's it. That's episode 104. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Hopefully it sounded okay. We're on a new setup here, as I mentioned previously. Football's in the books. Episode 104 is in the books. Again, my name is Ryan, at Ryan Knows Ball. That's my Twitter handle, at We Know Ball Sports, Instagram, TikTok. We're going to be streaming more on Twitch, TikTok on Twitch, YouTube, a lot of different things, at We Know Ball Sports, Instagram, TikTok. I think I said that already. Check us out on YouTube. The podcast or Apple Podcasts, Spotify. We Know Ball. We have the We Know Baseball show. Baseball's a little bit lower and not as prominent right now, of course, but we're diving right into it, man. If I don't talk to you guys before then, which I'm not sure if I'm going to, I did tease the episode for later this week. I'm not sure if that's going to happen because Thursday, the day that we would typically do the second episode of the week, it's Thanksgiving. So if I don't talk to you guys then, happy Thanksgiving. Appreciate you guys tuning in all the way to the end if you made it to this point. I had a great episode 103. It's getting real spicy. It's getting real spicy. Getting towards the end of the football season, getting into the holiday season. Really love this time of year. Hopefully you guys do too. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the episode, and we'll talk to you guys next time. Peace.
We know ball. First and goal. Mahomes flings it. It's there! Hardman! Jackpot! Kansas City! It's over. Time to say it again, Boston. Anything's possible. Banner number 18 has been secured. The Celtics are NBA champions.
I mean, we know that we know ball around here.
Hail, hail, Michigan. They are the champions of college football 2023.
Start the party, Los Angeles! Your Dodgers have won the World Series!
It is a UConn coronation. The Huskies make history. Back-to-back national champions.
Well, we know ball, so